The Zephyrian Military Academy had trained the finest warriors across 17 star systems for over 3 centuries. Its crystalline spires pierced the violet sky of Zephyr Prime, and its halls echoed with the achievements of legendary commanders who had shaped galactic history. So when the first human cadet arrived, the reaction was less than welcoming. Cadet Sarah Chen stood barely 5 feet tall among her towering classmates. The Zephyrians averaged 8 feet in height, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the Academy's bioluminescent lighting. The Karathi delegates moved with serpentine grace, their forearms capable of wielding multiple weapons simultaneously. Even the stocky grim warriors, built like living boulders, dwarfed the human newcomer. "Look at it," hissed Cadet Vextar, his mandibles clicking in what passed for Zephyrian laughter. No natural armor, no redundant organs, no enhanced reflexes. How did this soft thing even qualify for tactical training? The other cadets joined in the mockery. During combat simulations, they would deliberately pair Chen with impossible scenarios, watching her struggle against opponents twice her size and 3 times her speed. In strategic planning exercises, they dismissed her suggestions without consideration, their translator implants barely bothering to process her primitive human language. Instructor Kalas, a veteran Karathi commander with scales that bore the scars of a dozen campaigns, watched the harassment with growing concern. She had seen the humans' entrance scores. They were extraordinary, particularly in pattern recognition and adaptive problem-solving. But talent meant nothing if it was crushed before it could flourish. "Your species is fascinating," Kalas told Chen one evening after a particularly brutal training session. "Your files indicate humans evolved as persistence hunters." "Tell me, young one, what does that mean?" Chen wiped purple blood from a split lip. "Zephyrian combat training wasn't gentle." "It means we don't give up, instructor. Our ancestors would chase prey for days, sometimes weeks. We're built to endure." "And what happens when the prey finally stops running?" Chen's eyes hardened. "We catch it." The moment that changed everything came during the annual War Games, a month-long simulation that tested every cadet's tactical, strategic, and leadership capabilities. The scenario was brutal. Defend the mining colony of Kepler 442b against an overwhelming enemy force. Each cadet commanded a small fleet and had to hold out for 30 days until reinforcements arrived. Most cadets lasted less than a week. Vextar, commanding the largest fleet assigned to the exercise, managed 8 days before his forces were decimated. The grim delegation's best warrior held for 12 days through sheer firepower and stubbornness. The previous record, set by a Karathi prodigy 50 years earlier, stood at 18 days. Chen's approach was different from the start. While other cadets focused on building massive defensive positions and meeting the enemy head-on, she scattered her forces across the system. Her classmates laughed as they watched her apparently abandon key strategic positions without a fight. "The human runs at the first sign of real combat," Vextar sneered to his followers. Typical of such a weak species. But Chen wasn't running, she was hunting. Day after day, her small fast ships would strike at enemy supply lines, then vanish before retaliation could arrive. She used the asteroids, the gas giants' moons, even the solar wind itself to mask her movements. When the enemy adapted to her tactics, she changed them. When they predicted her next move, she did the opposite. The simulation's AI, designed to mimic the tactical brilliance of the ancient Void Kings who had once terrorized the galaxy, began to exhibit something unprecedented: frustration. Its massive fleets, built to crush static defenses, found themselves chasing ghosts. Every time they moved to eliminate Chen's forces, she was already gone, having anticipated their response 3 moves ahead. By day 20, something impossible was happening. The AI's losses were mounting while Chen's forces remained largely intact. Her hit-and-run tactics had evolved into something more sophisticated, a web of interconnected strikes that systematically dismantled the enemy's ability to wage war. The entire academy had stopped their regular classes to watch. Instructors who had served in real campaigns stood in amazed silence as this small human systematically dissected a force 50 times her size. Day 25, the AI began making increasingly desperate moves, abandoning all tactical doctrine in attempts to pin down Chen's forces. But every trap it set she had already foreseen and avoided. Day 30 arrived with Chen's forces not only intact but stronger than when they had started, having captured and repurposed enemy vessels throughout the campaign. The simulation ended with the AI requesting clarification on whether it had malfunctioned. In the Academy's Great Hall, before every instructor and cadet, Commandant Torgash, a legendary grim warrior whose mere presence had ended 3 separate galactic conflicts, approached the small human cadet. "In 3 centuries," his voice rumbled like shifting mountains, "no cadet has ever achieved what you have accomplished." The Void Kings themselves would have been proud of such tactics. "Tell me, Cadet Chen, how did a species barely 2 centuries into space travel develop such sophisticated warfare?" Chen stood at attention, still dwarfed by everyone around her. "Respectfully, Commandant, we didn't develop it. We've always had it. Humans have been practicing persistence hunting for millions of years. We just scaled it up." The silence that followed was profound. Years later, when the Devourer swarms emerged from dark space to consume the galaxy, it was Admiral Sarah Chen who led the unified response. Her tactics, the same persistence hunting strategies that had once fed her ancestors on a small blue planet, became the template for modern galactic warfare. The swarms had expected to face the traditional heavy fighting doctrines of the established powers. Instead, they encountered something their hive minds had never seen: an enemy that refused to die, that adapted faster than they could evolve, that turned their own size and strength against them. The war lasted 7 years. The swarms, which had devoured 3 galaxies before reaching the Milky Way, were not merely defeated. They were systematically hunted to extinction by fleets led by human persistence tactics. Today, every military academy in known space teaches the Chen protocols. Cadet Vexstar, now a general himself, requires his students to memorize this simple truth: never underestimate a species that spent millions of years chasing its dinner across entire continents. When humans decide your prey, the hunt only ends one way. And in the deepest archives of the Galactic Defense Council, where the most classified strategic documents are stored, there's a single file labeled simply, "Remember the human warning. They always catch what they hunt." The small cadet they once mocked had become the nightmare that enemies whispered about in the darkness between stars.